Yes, YouTube, hope that you're good. It's Ben Hawksworth at the Coach Consultant, and today we're doing a step-by-step walkthrough of the best performing lead magnets that you can use inside your business as an online coach, personal trainer, to acquire new clients. So the concept of a lead magnet, just as a first principle so people understand it, is where you are giving something away for free. You are extracting their number, their emails, their data to enable you to then obviously have as much outbound targeting in terms of warm approaches as possible. I'm a massive fan of using lead magnets because I'm a massive fan of something that I call the top G method, and that is just give, ask, right? When you give out with content, whether it's short form, long form, with emails, with lead magnets, with ads, with whatever it may be, when you're giving a substantial amount of value, then that puts you in a position where you are going to generate a lot more trust and connection with your audience. So I'm a massive fan of using lead magnets because this is in essence just means that the more opt-ins that you get, the more trust and connection that you are generating from solving someone's problem, but also the more opt-ins that you get, the more numbers you've got for contact, the more emails that you've got for contact, and the more people that you've got for general retargeting. So lead magnets are very, very important to me because if someone's not doing this, then in terms of scaling with acquisition, where does it leave you? It leaves you having to send as many cold DMs as humanly possible. Whereas if we're doing this from an asset that's genuinely helping someone and you've genuinely put time and effort into it, don't get me wrong, there's a substantial amount of different ways that you can do these fast with Etsy, for example, or Gamma AI, where you can build presentations or resources with like that. But for me, it still comes down to making sure that you are always still providing the right type of information to someone. So lead magnets are very, very, very important. But I also do believe that a lot of the time with online coaches and personal trainers, they're really heavily overcomplicating this process. So what I'm basically going to do is a walkthrough and kind of pros and cons of all of these. So number one, we've put down a macro calculator. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of a macro calculator before, but this is basically a piece of software or a web page which will basically enable to calculate someone's macros based on their height, weight, activity level, and all that type of stuff. So based on the data that I have extracted and used within the Coach Consultant, we have seen maybe 10 or 20 times more opt-ins for macro calculator than any other lead magnet that there is out there. But what you've got to take into account is that a macro calculator isn't actually providing someone with that much value. They are just getting what they are asking for. So all they're doing is getting a load of numbers back. So in terms of trust and connection associated with opt-ins for that, people potentially are just using that tool because they want to know the macros and they're going to do it themselves. So someone really isn't actually opting in associated with pain normally there. So what we've found is, yes, it's incredible for data, when data is always going to be beneficial for more emails, more outbound, more contact. But in terms of actual converting off the back of it, it's going to be a little bit less, for example, than what I'm going to talk about down on the bottom here, because there's less conversations around just macros. Number two, which is going to be the most common one, guys, which in reality for most people out there, a fat loss guide is going to be something that I would highly recommend that you have. But what you've got to take into account here is it's not just a fat loss guide, it's a fat loss guide for X or Y or Z. So the fat loss guide that you create needs to be specifically associated with the niche target consumer that you are working with. So for example, if you are just creating a generic fat loss guide, expect a generic result. If you create a fat loss guide which is specific towards your niche, aligned with your offer, then you're going to have a much higher likelihood of actually getting some form of action and conversation off the back of that. So when we're looking at a fat loss guide, what we're looking at here, guys, is example meal plans, example understanding of energy balance, looking at different calories and macros and breakdowns, and people understanding what all that means, alongside kind of what it takes to actually get into a deficit and lose body fat, and overall kind of educate people, give them something, but also kind of give them that first little step where they're going to feel supported enough to be like, actually wait, right? The good thing about obviously a fat loss guide is if someone's opted into a fat loss guide, then that's obviously clearly heavily focusing on a pain point for them, which is wanting to lose body fat. So that's a great opening conversation that you can have with them because they've opted in for a fat loss guide. Do they want support with fat loss? Yeah. Step number three, again, like you see on here, this is not rocket science, right? You've then got a muscle gain guide, right? But what we've basically got to take into account here is exactly the same process as the above, a muscle gain guide for who? Because a generic muscle gain guide is not going to instigate that much interest and interaction. Whereas if you are creating a muscle gain guide specifically for an office worker or a parent or a male lifestyle mum or a mum or whatever itself, then that's going to be a lot more specifically associated with that actual kind of niche, and it's going to directly support them. Because in reality, guys, like what we've got to look at here is your big hitting 3 or 4. One, everyone needs to know what the macros are, so it's a great place to start. Number 2, everyone's really most of the time looking at fat loss. Number 3, most of the time people looking to gain muscle or build lean muscle mass because it's going to make them look better and feel better. So number 4, what we basically found is that actually time management and routine mastery guides really go down well, because the things that stopping people from following those macros and following a fat loss diet and following a training program is the fact that they aren't actually managing their routine and time efficiently. So having something such as a habit stacking guide or a routine guide or a morning routine structure or a week to week or month to month annual structure is really good for people, because it allows them to actually feel like they've got the tools to actually take action on doing this themselves. So when you're basically looking at this type of stuff, guys, like this is the type of bank that I'd have now, right? Because this can be launched multiple different times throughout a year. You can have it in your DM assets, you can have it as part of your application processes, you can resurface and re-engage with new people at all times. So number 5 is a little bit of a different one, and this is where we're looking at negative news, right? So for example, people will always buy into kind of what is almost a little bit negative. So negative news here, basically what I've put down there is the top 10 biggest mistakes you are making with X, Y, and Z. Right? People don't want to feel like they are following something that isn't working. And a lot of the time when someone is following a plan and they're not seeing results, all they're thinking about is, what am I doing wrong? What mistakes am I making? How can I improve this? Where can I get over it? So if you've got a resource which will isolate the top 10 biggest mistakes that XYZ niche is making, then you're going to get decent level opt-ins for that, because people want to know where they are going wrong, right? Nobody likes to be following something where they feel like they're winging it and they don't actually know what they're doing. So creating a resource or a guide which outlines these top 10 biggest mistakes is a great way to get an opening conversation, because what you've got there is, oh, which ones out of them did you see that you're currently making mistakes on now? So out of the 10, was it all 10? Were it 1, 2, or 3, or 4? But you've got a great conversational starting point topic there, because all you've got to do is just turn around and outbound going, hey, I've just seen that you downloaded that resource. Out of the 10, just out of interest, what do you feel like you're struggling with at the moment? Or where do you feel like you're potentially making mistakes? And that's going to be an easy conversation to open up off the back of And that's going to be an easy conversation that you can open up with off the back of that by just literally asking, out of the 10 mistakes, what was it? Number 6, free taster plans. Nothing lands more than giving people a taste to what you are doing. Here is a downloadable 2-week training program. Here is a downloadable full body workout. Here is a downloadable kind of upper body lower split structure. Right, you're giving people a taste of what you are actually doing in terms of training, but then at the same time you can coincide that with giving people a taste associated with giving them example diet structure or giving them a load of different recipes. So what we're looking for there is obviously actually impressing these people with what we are giving to them, so then they actually really kind of desire our paid services, because like, well, if this is this good, then I want to know what's inside the actual program. So being as simple as just giving away actual free taster plans is going to be a massive tick for me, because that is the best way that you can see someone to get actually bought into what you are doing inside your program. You don't need to give it all away, but you just need to give enough away for them to get to a point of thinking, oh, I am actually a little bit interested. The next level from that point, because what we've basically got here, guys, is you've got different levels that we're going to. What you can do at that point is, once you've got all of these assets together, you can combine them into a Kickstarter pack. So a Kickstarter pack could be including a macro calculator, fat loss guide, muscle gain guide, routine mastery, top 10 biggest mistakes, a few diet training program, and you've got this master pack that's absolutely fucking ridiculous, where in essence someone opts in for that like, wow, I've literally got absolutely every single thing that I need here. So for example, what we're looking from there is we've got this incredible structure where we've got a master asset, but we can use these individual ones at all times. And in reality, this comes down to value perception, right? If someone values what you are doing and they are really interested in what you are doing, then the likelihood of them actually replying to you in a conversation and wanting to purchase your services is going to be a hell of a lot much greater, just from going out of your way to actually provide value. And what I'm putting down on here, guys, is not rocket science, right? The more simple a lead magnet is, the better, because all people are thinking is fat loss, muscle gain, manage time better. How do I get started? How do I get my macros? Right? They're thinking on a real simple level. I want you to imagine that when you're pushing a lead magnet at someone, it's not like, here is the fucking square root Pythagoras cause of fat loss to find out how opt in. You don't need that. People need it in simple layman terms where they're like, actually, I'm interested in that, I'm going to opt in. straight away. There's no thought process, there's no overthinking it. It's just like, fat loss guide, free, sweet, yeah, bang, done, right? So what you've then got at the final kind of one, which we have found to be massively, massively beneficial, is client case studies. Because at the end of the day, all of these assets and all of these top G method of give that you are giving out, right, is putting people in a situation where they are going to be a hell of a lot more confident with you. So just for them to have maybe one client case study, so one client case study where they are, in essence, a tiny bit more kind of invested into what's happening with clients, for example, then they're going to be like, actually, wait, I really, really kind of like what this person's about. I like what this guy's about. And that's going to basically put you, or girl, for example, that's going to put you in a position where they're going to want to invest. Sorry, I've come towards the back end of the video and my camera's just decided to start turning around everywhere. But yeah, overall, guys, like when it comes to lead magnets, the biggest point I'm trying to make to you here is do not overcomplicate this process. And most importantly, think about what type of conversation that you can have with these prospects after they opt in. Because yes, you need volume, which is great, which I always recommend a macro calculator. But how you build these guides, specifically associated with X, Y, and Z for who, right, and then combining these together for maximum value in the case study is going to dictate the value and trust and connection that someone has with you, right? And someone might opt into 2, 3, 4 of these before they take action because they've got a higher action threshold, and that's absolutely fine, right? But the main thing is that you never stop giving. Sometimes these will go really well, sometimes they'll go really bad. That's just the aim of the game. That's just what happens. So if you want any support with lead magnets, content acquisition, sales, mindset, signature programs, anything to do with online coaching, fitness businesses, guys, then please feel free to drop me a message on Instagram at benhawksuff_. If you want to know more about the type of results that we've achieved with using, again, really simple lead magnet methods like this, for example, because the money is in the follow-up, which I've not spoke about today. But if you want to know more, then there's a link somewhere in my bio to see the incredible people that we've worked with and who we've helped, and hopefully I'll see you in our community soon.